Turbo and 2K show.
What is up, 2K crew, and welcome to tonight's episode. We got a lot to cover. And we broke some Turbo and 2K's records last week. We'll get into that. We've got the Rams and Seahawks up on the big screen. We've got a big Thursday night. Thank you for sharing it with us. For those of you that are watching live over on Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube, go ahead and like, follow, subscribe, hit the bell so you get notified every time we go live. And if you're on the audio side, the true OGs of the Turbo and 2K show, thank you for all of your support as well, whether you have us in your ears on the treadmill or in the car on the way to work. We got a lot of new, we've got, it was kind of hard to put together tonight's show because there's a lot I wanted to cover and don't have a whole lot of time. But before we do jump into things, I do want to say this is the last show before Christmas. So I always like to give this little tagline. Just remember, it's not what's under the tree that matters. It's who's around the tree. Spend time with your family. It's not about how much money you spend. It's not about who got the best gift or what gift you got. Spend time with your loved ones. Have a good meal. That is what's most important. So remember that going into next week, as Christmas is next week. And I'm going to try to sneak in and do an episode on Friday, just because I don't have enough clipped content to last for 2 weeks. So yeah, we're obviously gonna have some college football playoff stuff to look back over and kind of look forward to. So that's definitely going to be on the slate. We're still going to have some very tight NFL playoff races going. So we'll have plenty of content. And as we're going to get to some of the stuff tonight, there's some stories that just keep on giving. So let's jump into the news here. I did want to, like I said, we did break some records last week. It was the most viewed Turbo and 2K show live last week. So thank each and every one of you who dropped in last week. And we did have our most viewed piece of content last week. So really, really excited about that. Hopefully we can keep the momentum going here, 2K crew. But some of the stuff I wanted to get into, we're going to talk about some Notre Dame stuff right out the gate. This is from Notre Dame Fighting Irish over on Twitter. Breaking: Jeremiah Love, the best running back in Notre Dame history, has declared for the NFL draft. He announced, #GoIrish. Thank you for everything. And that was shortly followed by, this is from Barstool Irish. This was actually yesterday. Jadarian Price has declared for the NFL draft. Thank you. And yes, as a Notre Dame fan, it does stink to see both of these guys go, but it was expected. Especially with the kind of short lifespan of a running back, and it was just their time. It was their time to go. So best of luck to both of those gentlemen. I have a feeling whichever team picks them up will be greatly, greatly, greatly glad they did. And let's see here. What is this one? Yep. As I'm sure everyone knows, Patrick Mahomes tore his ACL in the game Sunday, and this is from Trey Wingo. So this is crazy. Both Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes won 3 Super Bowls early in their careers and then tore their ACLs in their 9th season, with both teams missing the playoffs that year. And before you even say anything, I realized Tom Brady got hurt in the first game. Patrick Mahomes got hurt in week 15. I get that. But if you look at some of the comparisons between the two, the beginning of their careers were, as far as accomplishments are concerned, not stats, but accomplishments, are eerily similar. So just to add this to it is just a whole other level of, okay, this is weird. But both going to go down as two of the greatest to ever do it. And if when it comes to Mahomes, there's two sides of things. There's the one side that's like, oh man, no, obviously they're out of the playoffs now, so no deep playoff run, no Super Bowl for the Chiefs. Man, that really stinks. I was really hoping he'd be able to get to the levels that Tom did with the Super Bowl rings. And then there's the other side, which I think the vast majority of us are in that. It's like, thank goodness, Chiefs are not going to make the playoffs. We're not going to have to go through this whole Tom versus Patrick comparison yet again for another year. But we'll get into my thoughts as to what the Chiefs are, where they're going, what are they moving forward when we get to our NFL segment. So I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. Here's another one. This is a complete other side of the coin. This is from Jim Retarbaugh over on Twitter. Chiefs fan here. I hate Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, but nobody deserves to be stuck at home with Brittany while recovering from surgery. Wishing Pat a speedy recovery. I thought that was funny. And if you watch the quarterbacks doc, the very first one, you know exactly what that guy is talking about. So yeah, I'm sure for Patrick it's very hard because he's never sustained an injury like this. So, and on top of that, if you look at his career, he hasn't exited, or had this short of, or has never not made the playoffs. So very odd feeling for him, but I have a very good feeling that, like I said, well, as they say in the corporate world, bookmark that, or excuse me, put a pin in it. We'll circle back on it. Since we're talking about some quarterbacks here, this is from Adam Schefter. A major move in Miami. The Dolphins are benching quarterback Tua Tagovailoa and turning to Quinn Ewers as their new starting quarterback per sources. Ewers' first start comes Sunday versus the Bengals. Which, if you are going to be a starting, this is going to be your very first NFL start, one would think that going against the Bengals would be the team that you would want to pick ultimately, because that defense is terrible. Defense is horrible. So I have a feeling that you're going to see the best Quinn Ewers you're probably going to see for the rest of the season. But where does that leave Miami? I mean, Miami is, let me pull up the standings here. Next to dead. Yeah, they're 6-8, have been officially eliminated from the playoffs. But it kind of got me thinking. And this was one of those things I didn't know whether to put it in the news segment or the NFL segment, so I decided to put it in the news segment. What the heck's going on here? Hold on. And take a look at some of the quarterback contracts and how they're, just to kind of see if their team would be happy. Patrick Mahomes signed his contract in 2020 for a total value of $450 million. Josh Allen signed his in 2025 for a total of $330 million. So those two, I have a feeling that their teams are perfectly happy with writing them a paycheck every single week. Joe Burrow signed his in 2023 for a max value of $275 million. Now, this is a weird one, and I really don't want to get too far into the Joe Burrow discussion after what he said after the game this last Sunday, but I have a feeling that the team is happy with what they have with Joe Burrow. Is Joe Burrow happy? That's the question I think all of us are asking ourselves. After the comments he said, what he's doing isn't fun anymore, and immediately I think all of us, little PTSD when looking back at Andrew Luck, kind of drawing the comparisons there. But like I said, that's a whole other topic for a whole other show. Brock Purdy signed his in 2025 for a max value of $265 million. TBD. He was hurt most of for part of the year, but when he has been in there, it has the 49ers have been just rolling. So I have a feeling both parties there are very happy with that transaction. Justin Herbert signed his in 2023 for $262.5. Again, I have a feeling both parties are very happy there. Then it starts to get into the questionable stuff here. Lamar Jackson signed his in 23 for $260. If you're Baltimore, are you happy with that? And I know not every player that I've listed so far has won a Super Bowl. Actually, the only one who has is Patrick Mahomes. So just winning the Super Bowl, is that enough to justify a contract that he signed 2 years ago? I don't think so. And it runs through 29. So there's still, as they say, there's still some meat left on that bone, and it's kind of that's one I'm kind of up in the air in. I'm not the biggest Lamar fan. He is exciting to watch, but when it comes to the actual quarterback play, call me a traditionalist, call me whatever you want to. I just don't see it. I just don't see it. He has flashes of greatness, but it's nothing that's really strung together. And the wheels always seem to fall apart in the playoffs. So without a playoff win, it's kind of hard to judge what's going on. And the same can be said for Trevor Lawrence as well. Next on the list is Jalen Hurts. This is a big one. There's been a lot of people that have been saying that maybe the Eagles overpaid. Yes, Super Bowl winner, Super Bowl champion. But he signed his in 23 as well for $255 million. And, especially this year, the offense hasn't been clicking the way it should. The run game's been terrible. We saw kind of a resurgence last week, but is that going to be enough? I think the Eagles can kind of hang their hat because they're in a very weak division right now. It's one of those things where if the Cowboys would have put it together a little sooner, then we might be able to see. Yes, I know the Cowboys are mathematically still in the playoff hunt, but let's be realistic, okay? And the simple fact that the Eagles are just the best of those teams, yeah, they're probably going to make the playoffs, but how far are they going to go? I'm not sold on Jalen Hurts either. Dak Prescott signed his deal last year, highest average annual salary at $60 million, and his runs through 2028. And again, he hasn't won anything either. And in my opinion, Jerry Jones, this was definitely overpaid for Dak. Is he a good player? Yes. Is he worth $60 million a year? I don't think so, especially considering all the other holes that this team has. If you would have gotten a more player-friendly deal with Dak, especially considering the injuries and everything else that's happened, Micah might still be there. You never know. Micah might still be there, and we could see, a whole other, kind of domino effect. And it's going to be interesting to see what Jerry does with Pickens going into the offseason. He's kind of taken over that number one role from CeeDee. So where are they going to land? Kyler Murray signed his deal in 22, runs through 28 for a total value of 230.5, excuse me. I have a feeling this is a deal. If you gave Arizona a redo, they would have not done this. It seems like after that deal, he proceededly got worse and worse and worse. You can credit it to injuries. You can credit it to whatever you want, whether it's Call of Duty, injuries, pick your poison. But it's one of those that is a lot of money. That's a lot of money. That's 46.1 a year. That's a huge hit on your salary cap for a player that is not performing well at all. And then there's Deshaun Watson, which I guarantee if you gave Cleveland a redo, 100%. 100%. Highest guaranteed money ever awarded. $230 million. All guaranteed money. Next on the list is Jordan Love. Again, yet another guy who seems to have the upside to warrant a $55 million a year contract, 220 total. But again, hasn't won anything and has shown signs this year that he looks to be the guy. He looks to be a top 5 quarterback in this league, but it, for one reason or another, has never been able to put it together. You could say, yes, injuries across the wide receivers. Tucker Kraft is out, and the offense has just looked completely different with Kraft out of the lineup. I get that. But this is where an absolutely awesome player, a transcendent player, gets past stuff like that and still wins. And yes, Packers are still in the playoff hunt as of today being December 18th. But if they get in, how far are they going to go? That's the question. And he's made it to the playoffs before. That team is, it's not new to them, but really haven't made that deep run. Definitely haven't made it to the NFC Championship game. Definitely haven't made it to the Super Bowl. So where is that's one I'm still TBD. Still giving a TBD. And then we've got Tua. Signed his deal in 24, runs through 28. Cap hit of 53.1 a year. Sitting on the bench for the remainder of the season. Below him is Jared Goff at 53 million. He signed his in 24, runs through 28. There's no doubt in my mind Detroit is head over heels happy with their investment in Jared Goff. Then we go Cousins, Darnold, Mayfield, Stafford. So there's a lot of guys at the top of this list that are completely unproven, and there's some of them, like we talked about, that if the team were to get a redo, they probably would run the complete other direction. And this is one of those things I just wanted to see where, get an idea of when, kind of refresh the memory, when to assign, when it runs until, and the dollars. Because you're talking about a Dolphins team that, and if you saw on Twitter, Tyreek Hill pretty much said peace out again. He did this before, but this might be, Tua seems to be his guy. He's went to bat for him many times. Even when Tua was drafted, they said, well, there's no way that Tua's arm strength sucks that he could even get it close to Tyreek Hill. And we've seen both those guys have very, very high levels of success with McDaniels in that offense. But it's something, again, that injuries for both of them. And I don't know. And Tua, it seems like this year and last year just throws some of the most ridiculous interceptions when they aren't even close to being anything. He's throwing them right to the other team as opposed to his own team, which is a big deal. It's a really big deal. So the question now remains, you bench your $50 million a year quarterback. It's easier to get rid of the coach because he makes far less. It's easier to get rid of the coach than it is to get rid of the quarterback. And at this point, who on earth would trade for him? Who? I mean, the Browns might. The Jets might, because they're two of the most idiotic franchises in the NFL. That wouldn't shock me at all. But what value do you get out of it? Because are you going to have $50 million sitting on the bench? And like Quinn Ewers, what if Ewers finishes the year and looks fantastic? That's, as a Dolphins fan, that's the scariest thing in the world, is if Quinn Ewers goes in, a 7th round pick, who at the beginning of last year's college football season was slated to be a 1st round pick and slid all the way down there. You're leaving your franchise with him? Not to say that he can't do it, but that is kind of the worst nightmare for any Dolphins fan out there. #FinFam. Is to what happens. Because it seems to me like, yes, this is a line in the sand that you're moving past Tua, and which is fine, but where do you go? Where do you go from here? And I think it's something we're all just going to have to sit back and kind of watch as the Seahawks go up 6-0 on the Rams. So that I think that's all the news that I had. Let me scan it here real quick. Oh, what's this one? Nope. Tua. Here's, and again, kind of to further paint my picture here, this is from Sam Block. 1st round quarterback since 2020. Tua, benched. Justin Fields, benched. Zach Wilson, benched. Trey Lance, benched. Trey Lance really didn't even play. Let's not try to put lipstick on a pig here. Mac Jones, benched. Bryce Young, benched. Kenny Pickett, benched. Anthony Richardson, benched. The NFL has a quarterback development problem. Now, Sam, I'm going to agree mostly with you. However, let's pump the brakes here. Tua's look very bad. Justin Fields, Zach Wilson look very bad. Like I said, Trey Lance, I think, was more of a reach. He did not deserve to go pick number 3. Probably didn't deserve to go in the first round at all. That's not his fault. That's the fault of the 49ers for overreaching to get him. Mac Jones looked very good in relief of Purdy when he was in there. I just think that Mac Jones got the shaft by going to New England, where we thought he would be a perfect fit. It just turned out the coaching staff sucked. So I don't put that one on Mac Jones. Bryce Young has played a whole lot better this year, but it was rocky to get here. Kenny Pickett, he was not a first round pick. Sorry. Anthony Richardson played such a small amount of football to get drafted by Indy, I believe at 4. You can't take a project in the first round. And Richardson might have all of the physical attributes. He's a freak athlete. I totally get all that. But it takes more than just being a freak athlete to be a successful quarterback. So, Sam, yes, I do agree with you. You're just pointing out the facts here, but just giving you a little bit of pushback on a couple of these. But you ultimately are correct. And what do all of these guys have in common? They have that 2020 season in common. Not going to mention, we all know what it is. I'm not going to mention the name, but they all have that 2020 season somewhere in their career. And I think that had a lot to do with quarterback development. On the flip side, we've seen some first round picks that have just, hit the ground running and been just fine. So I don't think and it's not the NFL that has the quarterback development problem. It's college. The college programs are not setting the quarterbacks up for NFL success. Ultimately, that is what it is. In my opinion. For those of you watching live, let me know if I'm completely off base on any of this. Let's talk some college football, shall we? We're going to get into the playoff bracket here just here in a little bit, but I did want to bring back some things that we talked about last week that I did. Well, before we really jump into that, let's talk about the Heisman. We haven't talked since we've been since we talked about the Heisman. This is from Pat McAfee. Congrats, Fernando. Thank you for doing this for the state of Indiana. Fernando Mendoza wins the Heisman. And there's a bunch of controversy about this, not because the year ended in 5, every other year that's ended in 5, a running back has won the award. No, it came afterwards with Diego Pavia. Pavia basically said, "Fuck the voters, I deserve this," and looked very Jersey Shore-ish. I won't go into some of the other comments that some of the other people online made, but yeah, looked very, very Jersey Shore-ish. And ultimately, I think his behavior afterwards, even though he did put out an apology, heartfelt or not, it was an apology. But this is going to tarnish what he's done. He went into that, prior to that, being the savior of a program, the savior of Vanderbilt football, putting Vanderbilt football on the map. Just strapped it to his back and said, "Let's go, boys. Let's win some football games." And they did. And we saw the number 1 quarterback recruit flip from Georgia to Vanderbilt. I have a feeling because of what Pavia's kind of built there. I mean, that has to weigh something. And for him to go out and do this was like, who in the hell was his PR person? Get in front of that. Control your guy. Because not only is it a black eye for him, for Vandy, college football all around. I'm not going to go too much more into that, but let's just say it was a bad look. It was a bad look. Now, excuse me. I got into, I'm not going to say Twitter wars because that's something I don't do. I just simply don't have the time There's a couple of the video that I prefaced with, or the clip that I prefaced earlier in the show, that was our most viewed clip or piece of content ever for the Turbo and 2K show. What drove that was just a bunch of people arguing. And I work a full-time job, and even if I didn't, I'm not going to get in the comments and continue to argue with people. I'll let them do that. So, but I did make some comments about, if you look at Mendoza's or any of the quarterbacks that were up for the award this year and compare them to past quarterback Heisman winners, there's quite a gap. There is quite a gap. So I found this. This is from Respect Sports. Fernando Mendoza does not deserve to win the Heisman Trophy. Indiana fans are delusional. Here are the stats from the last five quarterbacks to win the Heisman. Jaden Daniels, 4,946 yards, 50 touchdowns. Caleb Williams, 4,914 yards, 52 touchdowns. Bryce Young, 4,872 yards, 47 touchdowns. Joe Burrow, 6,039 yards, 65 touchdowns. Kyler Murray, 53, 62, and 54 touchdowns. Fernando Mendoza had 2,854 yards and 35 touchdowns. There is a vast, vast gaping hole between the last five quarterbacks to win the award and Mendoza. He goes on to say the real Heisman Trophy winner should be Jeremiah Love. And if I was a voter, I would have given my vote to Love as well. But one thing I want to end this little Heisman talk is just with this, is that Mendoza, the stats might not be there, but off the field, the personality, he is everything that the Heisman Trophy stands for. An upstanding young man, is totally, team first. He carries himself extremely well. He will represent the Heisman house in the Nissan commercials very well. He's like a younger version of Kirk Cousins, and looks like him, talks like him, sounds like him. Love it. Love every bit of it. Love every bit of it. Now, once we get into draft talk, we see those numbers for his Heisman Trophy season. Is that really going to equate to a number one overall pick? So that's going to be the main question. See here, we got a comment from Arnold. Bryce Underwood is going to win the Heisman next year. We're going to get into Michigan, and Arnold, I'm assuming you're assuming he's going to remain at Michigan. If not, I think he has a little bit better chance to win the Heisman than if he does stay at Michigan, which is, thank you for that, because that's kind of the perfect segue as to where I was going with this. Cruising Twitter today, I saw, let me see if I can bring it up here real quick. I saw that's not Twitter. And of course, I have the article open, and it always just goes right back to my feed. Let's see here. Albert Breer retweeted it. This is from Yahoo Sports, Mike Bianchi. And the article was long enough to cover the point, but not super long. So I figured, what the hell? Let's read it all together. Arnold continues to say, Fernando Mendoza is good, though. Yeah, he's a winner. He's a winner. He's proven that. He's a winner. So like I said, this is from Mike Bianchi over at the Orlando Sentinel. So this is not you can tell, when you talk about controversial things like this, it's never the best thing to get something from a rival school such as Ohio State or any other Big Ten, because they're usually kind of biased. But this is from Mike Bianchi, Orlando Sentinel, like I said, from Yahoo Sports. So let's read this together, because he paints a great picture, and I can't find any faults in his argument. So let me know if you guys and gals find any arguments here. He says, excuse me, Michigan's interim coach, Biff Poggi, stood up at Bull News Conference in Orlando Monday and said his players felt, quote unquote, betrayed. He says he's right. They should. Let's be clear about who betrayed them, because it wasn't just disgraced former coach Sherrod Moore, and it sure as hell wasn't just last week. The betrayal in Michigan has been institutional, systematic, and years in the making. What those players are feeling now is simply the bill coming due for a university that decided winning mattered more than integrity, transparency, or basic accountability. Michigan just didn't stumble into this mess. Michigan engineered this mess. It has been a tumultuous time, said Poggi, who is preparing his scandal-scarred team for a game against Texas in the upcoming Cheez-It Citrus Bowl. A lot of first disbelief, then anger, then really what we're in right now is the kids, quite frankly, feel very betrayed, and we're trying to work through that. Poggi spoke Monday about listening, about empathy, and putting arms around shoulders after Moore was fired and arrested following allegations of an inappropriate relationship with a staff member that escalated into criminal charges. Poggi's tone was humane and appropriate. He was trying to clean up emotional wreckage he didn't create. But his most telling word was betrayed. Because if you're a Michigan player, you aren't just betrayed by a head coach's personal implosion. You were betrayed by a university that put coach in charge in the first place, knowing exactly who he was and what he represented. Why was Sherrod Moore even the head coach of Michigan football? That question should be shouted from the roof of the big house. Moore wasn't some unsuspecting outsider. He was a central figure in the Connor Stallion sign-stealing scandal that rocked college football and permanently stained Michigan's so-called national championship 2 years ago. He was sanctioned. He was suspended. He literally tried to delete text messages tied to this cheating operation, and Michigan still elevated him to head coach. Not despite the scandal after it. The decision alone tells you everything you need to know about Michigan's priorities. Let's rewind. 2 years ago, Michigan was caught running a sophisticated illegal sign-stealing operation that went far beyond, quote-unquote, everyone does it. This wasn't a rogue intern with binoculars. This was an organized system involved traveling, filming, and data collection that violated NCAA rules and competitive ethics. And what did Michigan do? It circled the wagons. President Santa Ono, now conveniently gone, stood shoulder to shoulder with former head coach Jim Harbaugh, calling him a quote-unquote man of honor, while the evidence piled up. The administration threatened legal action against its own conference. The goal wasn't truth. It wasn't reform. It was survival. Keep the medicine running. Get to the playoffs. Win the title. Mission accomplished. Then Harbaugh bolted for the NFL, leaving Michigan holding the bag. And instead of hitting the reset button, the university doubled down. It promoted Moore, a sanctioned coach tied directly to the scandal, because continuity mattered more than credibility. And now we're supposed to act shocked that the same administration that minimized cheating allegations also waved off reports earlier this season of Moore's alleged inappropriate relationship. Michigan claimed it couldn't verify whether the affair was real. Does anyone actually believe that? Or was Michigan once again in the middle of a season and unwilling to look too closely at anything that might derail it? Funny how clarity usually arrives after the whistle. Now Michigan has announced with a straight face that it's launching an investigation into its athletic department. That's not accountability. That's damage control. If the university truly wants answers, it shouldn't investigate the athletic department. It should investigate itself, its leadership, its culture, its repeated willingness to subordinate ethics to football success. Because this isn't just about Sherrod Moore. It's about a program that racked up NCAA violations, suspensions, and probation and fines north of $30 million. This is about a university that responded to a blatant cheating scandal, not with reform, but with rationalization. Of course, Michigan fans don't like hearing this. They'll say everyone cheats. They'll say it's a witch hunt. They'll say the banners still hang. But here's the uncomfortable truth. No major program in college football has combined competitive success and moral failure quite like Michigan over the past few years. Other schools got caught and cleaned house. Michigan got caught and closes ranks. That's why the national championship feels tainted, not because Michigan didn't have good players. It did. Not because Michigan didn't win a bunch of games. It did. That too. Because the institution made a conscious decision that how it won didn't matter. That's why Pogge says the players feel betrayed, because they were told to trust the program, to believe in the quote unquote the Michigan way, to represent something bigger than themselves. And it turns out that something bigger than themselves was a lie. They were sold stability and handed chaos, sold integrity and handed hypocrisy. Michigan's reputation as one of the nation's most respected academic institutions didn't deserve this. Its players didn't deserve this, and college football fans didn't deserve yet another lesson in how power tries to protect itself. The case of Michigan's problems isn't complicated. It isn't bad luck. It isn't one rogue coach or one bad decision. It's philosophy. And quite simply, that philosophy is, quote unquote, win at all costs. That's what that's when the standard scandals aren't surprises, they're inevitabilities. That's a lot to unpack. That's a lot to unpack here. Let's see what Arnold has to say. As a Michigan fan, Biff Pogge would be a good coach for Michigan. Biff coached in the Nebraska game and the Central Michigan game this year for Michigan, while Sherrone Moore was suspended. Very true. Says Michigan dominated the CMU game and played well enough against Nebraska. Well, Arnold, I hope they would dominate against a MAC team. But let's kind of take a step back and kind of unpack all that and kind of see basically what that guy said was Michigan did this to themselves. You know, this wasn't Sherrone Moore being an asshole. This wasn't Sherrone Moore just going rogue like he said. This was when you create an atmosphere like this, stuff like this is going to happen. And with all that being said, you know, we talked last week about who's going to coach this mess. You know, their main guy, Kenny Dillingham, basically said today that he's staying put at Arizona State. At Arizona State. So there's kind of your dream situation gone down the drain. There's been, you know, rumors as to, you know, kind of some other prospects. But what I'm actually curious, what coach would want to enter into a complete and utter shitstorm? Because no football coach, an AD that's probably on his way out, an interim president. So it's not, there is zero stability, there's zero accountability, there's zero anything in the football program in Michigan as we sit here December 18th. And yes, there will be coaches that would say, yes, I will do this because it is at the University of Michigan. It is a big time program. It's one of the top 5 programs in the country. Not right now, but in its glory, yes, it was. They're 2 years removed from winning a national championship, which kind of started this whole mess. So, you know, any big time name is going to run as far away from this as possible. Especially considering we saw how long it took Penn State to woo a coach. In Penn State, there wasn't any of this extra crap. It was just that their team was terrible. Or their team wasn't terrible. Their coach was terrible. The whole situation was terrible. So if you ask me, which one would I prefer? I would much prefer to go to Happy Valley, where there's a little bit more stability and there's very little to offer if you're Michigan to offer any head coach. You can throw as much money as you want. Who does he answer to? Who's the AD? Who's going to be the university president? Who knows? And like I talked about last week, I really do hope Sharon does get the help he needs, because there's something not right. Something's not right. Arnold goes on to say 63-3, even some power four teams can do that to a team like CMU. He also says Michigan is the best college football program of all time. Someone will want to coach them. Oh, they will. They will. But I don't think it's going to be the high profile person that Michigan is accustomed to getting. And he says, though PSU is done for. It's going to be hard to come back from the recruiting class that they didn't get. And good luck to their coach. It's going to take a while to get that program back to where it needs to be. And we haven't even talked about, just like Arnold was saying, Bryce Underwood's going to win the Heisman next year. It's not going to be from Michigan. Not from what we saw just this year. And I would be very hard pressed to see him put on a Michigan uniform again next year. Just my thought. And so lots of moving pieces there. And like I said, the transfer portal opens here in a couple weeks. We'll see who stays and see who goes. And if I'm one of the high profile Michigan guys that actually has a shot in the NFL, see ya. I'm gone. And that's not me being a Michigan hater by any means. That's just I'm putting myself in the shoes of 18 to 22-year-old young men, and you only get 4 years to do this, and I want to put the best 4 years I can on film. And if I think I can get a better opportunity somewhere else, yep, I'm going. So let's take a look at the playoffs. And Arnold, thank you for commenting, my friend. He did say here too that Virginia Tech is going to be the next Penn State. We'll see. I think it's going to be different because there isn't the winning expectation at Penn State is a little higher than it is at Vatech. So maybe he gets maybe it's a better landing spot for him. Let's put it that way. Tomorrow night, Alabama, Oklahoma. Actually, you know what? Before we get into the lineup here, is anyone aside from Ole Miss and Oregon fans going to watch their games? I mean, honest question. This isn't Notre Dame guy being a hater. I'm just saying we've got one game that's a 17.5 point spread. The other is 21 point spread. And the game that's 17.5 point spread, Ole Miss beat the shit out of Tulane by the tune of like 34 points. We saw this last year. And yes, I'm going to throw my hand up and say I probably will be watching these. Will I watch these games to their entirety? Nope. Because I really don't want to see backups play in the playoffs. I want to see good games. I want to see. We've got two of them. We got the Friday and then the Saturday morning or Saturday noon. Why this one isn't? I understand. Oregon and Ole Miss. I get that. It is what it is. But we've got Bama at Oklahoma, Miami at Texas A&M, Tulane at Ole Miss, and JMU at Oregon. And we talked about it a couple weeks ago. Vastly different weather in these situations, aside from the Oregon one. It's probably going to be cold in Oregon. But we saw some very, very cold games last year. South Bend, Ohio State, cold games. So there should be zero teams bitching about how they're playing. They're not used to playing in the cold. Is not an excuse. Oklahoma, as it sits right now, is a 1.5 point favorite. A&M is a 3.5 point favorite. I think this Alabama Oklahoma game is going to be the best one out of these four. Arnold says after Bama's performance against UGA, Oklahoma might destroy Bama. And I'm right there with you. I think that Oklahoma defense is too good. We've seen Ty Simpson throw very inopportune interceptions. You cannot have a negative rushing game and win a game. Can't happen. And especially against this Oklahoma defense, who is one of the top defenses in the country. But on the flip side, the offense isn't that great. Oklahoma's offense isn't that great. But I think the defense turns Alabama over twice and probably leads to 10 points. And I think those two interceptions or fumble in probably an interception and a fumble, I think those will be the backbreakers of Alabama. And I think Oklahoma will excuse me. Oklahoma will get that one. Miami, Texas A&M. This is a weird one because we have two quarterbacks that which versions of themselves are going to show up. So we've seen Carson Beck play very good football this year. We've also seen Carson Beck play very horrible football against horrible football teams. We've seen Marcel Reed play very well, but not as consistent as I think a lot of folks, and I'm sure A&M fans will back me up on this, as we would like to see from him. Both offenses have very good wide receivers. I think 3.5 is a big number here, even though 3.5 isn't that big. But I think, gun to my head, I'm going Texas A&M on this one. I think Marcel Reed outplays Carson Beck, and that's the reason why A&M wins this. Beck throws at least one, if not two picks in this game. And yeah, give me Ole Miss. I'll give the 17.5 and give me Oregon. I will give the 21.5. I'll give the 21. Now with Oregon, I haven't heard, are their receivers healthy? Because if their receiving core is healthy, this is going to be an Oregon team that's going to be a problem. They are going to be a problem. So that's probably the only reason I'll watch part of that game is to see how healthy, though, if they are healthy, how healthy are those receivers. But yeah, I think ultimately these two teams will have their backups in the fourth quarter. That is my prediction. So yeah, I'm going chalk across the board here. Home teams, chalk across the board. Let's get into some power rankings. Turbo's power rankings, top 5 NFL teams this week. Let's recap from last week. I had Texans 5, Seahawks 4, Bills 3, Rams 2, Pats 1. Got a little bit of shakeup here on the rankings. Not much, but we do have a little shakeup here. So let's get into it. Let's see. Number 5, I'm sticking with the Texans. I know their record doesn't show them to be a top 5 team, but if we're talking power rankings, this team is hitting on all cylinders right now. Defense is playing top of the league. We talked about C.J. Stroud last week, rounding back into form. Nico Collins retaking that number 1 wide receiver role, and the offensive line playing better. And when C.J. Stroud is upright, he's a much different player than when he's running, just running for his life. So I love them at 5. So yeah, they remain my 5. And my number 4 is the Seahawks. Now with this game right now, Rams Seahawks, which the Seahawks are up 7-3 with 13 minutes to go in the second quarter. These could change. As of right now, I have Seahawks 4. It's to the point now, the teams ahead of them, I trust their quarterbacks more than I do Sam Darnold. And Sam Darnold has a kind of a habit of playing good regular season, but when it comes to crunch time, maybe sees the ghosts again. I don't know. But we saw him play not so good against this Rams team already. So going to be curious to see how this game plays out. And I do believe the Rams do ultimately pull this one out, even though they're down 7-3 right now. So yes, give me Seattle at 4. I got to drop the Pats, even though I'm very high on the Pats right now. Got to drop them to 3 with the loss to the Bills. If they would have lost a close one to the Bills, I probably would still have them up at 1 like last week. But yes, it was close. But they gave that game away. Josh Allen did Josh Allen shit, came back, dominated, and they scored on 5 or 6 consecutive drives, scored touchdowns. And going into halftime, this is like shit. This game's over. The Patriots got this one. Nope. Josh Allen does what Josh Allen does. And that being said, I've got the Rams at 2. Like I said, that could change with the result of this game. And the Bills are 1. When Josh Allen is doing Josh Allen stuff, this team seems to be unstoppable. The Patriots defense that this Bills team did this against last week is a good defense. It's not like they're schlubs. And yes, you could say the refs played a little bit into it. I'm not buying that. But this is a good Bills team. Now, like we're going to talk about when we get to our NFL segment, without Patrick Mahomes there, this is kind of his easiest road. So how is that going to stack up? Let's get into our picks here. Let me take these off the screen so you can't see them, so it's more of a surprise. This is the Paycheck and Onion segment. This is Turbo's Picks of the Week. If you're not familiar with it, I give you 3 picks to sprinkle on a paycheck pick, meaning that my most confident pick of the week, aka lay your paycheck on it. Would not do that. Not gambling advice. And my Onions pick is the ballsiest pick of the week. And all of these, I took the odds yesterday off FanDuel. # not sponsored, want to be sponsored. There has been some movement in this. So I will go over that as we go. But some of these we've already talked about because we did look at the college slate here, and there's only 4 games. So number 1, I've got, nope, that's the wrong one. We talked about Oklahoma. Oklahoma is now 1.5 point favorite. I got mine locked in at plus 2.5. So even better. So yeah, give me Oklahoma plus 2.5. Ole Miss, I will give the 17.5. That spread still remains the same. And the last sprinkle here that we haven't talked about, give me the Bears, which this is flipped to minus 1.5. When I was putting this together, I'm like, okay. And the Bears are Packers are at the Bears. And when I locked this in at plus 1.5, I was sitting there going, okay, Micah Parsons is hurt. A lot of the offense for the Packers are hurt. Why are they favored? And I think granted, 1.5 either way is just basically a coin flip. But when you're giving me plus money on the Bears at home, even though they just got destroyed by said Packers team, but since they played, there's a lot that's happened with that Packers team, and a lot of people are hurt. So yes, give me the Bears minus plus 1.5. Doesn't matter. I got mine locked in at plus 1.5. Paycheck pick of the week. Patriots go into Baltimore. Not sure why Baltimore is favored in this game. Not sure. I think the Pats just got the shit beat. Gave up that big lead against Buffalo, and all of a sudden, they're crap. No. Anytime I can get the Patriots at plus money, sign me up. So yes, paycheck pick of the week, Pats plus 3. Love every minute of that. And my Onions pick of the week is it's the A&M game. Give me A&M. What is it? Minus 3.5. I got it at 3. And like I said, the reason that I'm not extremely confident in this game is which version of the quarterbacks are we going to get? If both are playing at a high level, I'm going to take Reed by a little bit. Excuse me. I just don't trust Carson Beck. I don't. So yeah, give me A&M minus 3. Let's talk about some NFL here. We've had some teams get knocked out of the playoff contention. We already talked about the Dolphins. We've talked about the AFC East. We did not talk. We talked a little bit about the Jets, but they've been eliminated for quite some time. AFC North, we got the Steelers at 8-6, Ravens at 7-7. Steelers have a plus 10 point differential. Ravens have a plus 15. Bengals were eliminated last week with that loss. AFC South, Jags, which I'm always horrible when I'm doing my power rankings to give the, on the cusp teams. You notice the Broncos weren't in there. I just don't like the way the Broncos win. That's what seems like that's what they do. But they win close games. And I just cannot. I'm not a Bo Nix guy. I'm not. I would take every other quarterback in the top 5 over Bo Nix any day of the week. Jags are the same way. I don't know what to think of this Jaguars team. They're 10-4. I don't trust Trevor Lawrence that much. I don't. So when we're talking about power rankings, that's where I trust CJ Stroud more than I do Trevor Lawrence. And in comparison, Jags are 10-4, Texans are 9-5, Colts pretty much dead when you got Phillip Rivers starting on Monday night. Even though he did look bad last week, they didn't get the win, but they had the lead in the fourth quarter. Which if you're a Colts fan with a grandpa, a literal grandfather playing quarterback for you, who his oldest child is older than your first round pick, Tyler Warren, that's all you can ask for. Literally, that is all you can ask for. A chance to win, especially considering I believe Seattle was like a 13 or 13.5 point favorite, because that was one of the things that I one of my picks last week. Which, going back to the picks here real quick, we're 33-26. Last week we went 2-3. First week in a while we were under 500. So head still above water, still positive units. So we're still rolling. But getting back to the AFC South, like we talked about, the Steelers and Ravens being 10 and 15 point differentials. The Jags are plus 84, Texans plus 95, and the Colts are plus 89. So take with that what you want, but it's a drastic difference. Drastic difference. In the AFC West, we've got Denver is already clinched a playoff spot, but they're at 12-2. Chargers are 10-4. Chargers are playing very, very good football right now, even though Justin Herbert's hand is broken and he's still stiff-arming guys. I'm sure if you're a Chargers fan, that's not what you want to see with a surgically repaired hand, but he's doing it. That's just the type of dude that he is. Yeah, Broncos they've won 11 straight. So I'm not saying they suck. I'm just saying I just don't trust Bo Nix. I don't. Switch over to the NFC. We've got Philly at 9-5, Cowboys at 6-7-1. Like we said, still statistically alive, barely, and their point differential is minus 13. So not looking good for them boys. But then again, the Eagles don't look so good either. Yes, they played a shit team last week, so we kind of forget that offense is kind of crappy. But it is. They're 9-5. They're 9-5. They're going to win the division. They're 9-5. NFC North, we've got 3 teams still alive. Bears at 10-4, Packers at 9-4-1. So it's a huge game in Chicago, like we talked about in the pick segment. And then the Lions are 9-6, still alive. They need to win out and get some help in order to get a wild card spot at least. Vikings have been eliminated. NFC South, Bucks are 7-7, as well as the Panthers are the only 2 teams still alive in that division. And the Bucks have a minus 27 point differential, and the Panthers have a minus 53. Again, just for context, and let's go to the NFC West, where we've got the Rams, who have clinched a playoff spot. They're 11-3. Seahawks are 11-3. They're second in the division because of the head-to-head. And the 49ers are 10-4, just 1 game back. Now, like I said, Bucks, Panthers, minus 27, minus 53. The Rams are plus 159, Seahawks are plus 163, and the Niners are plus 51. So when you have a minus point differential, tells me your offense either has trouble scoring or your defense has trouble stopping. When you have a positive, that means both are doing good. So let's take a peek at this week's schedule. I kind of give you some picks as we go along here. Like I said, I'm taking the Rams on this game here. We've got 2 games on Saturday. We got Philly at Washington. Philly should handle that. And Green Bay at Chicago. Like I said, Green Bay is now the 1.5 point favorite, but still, regardless, give me Chicago there. Sunday, Buffalo at Cleveland. Buffalo should handle that. They're a 10.5 point favorite. Chargers at Cowboys. This is another one. I was this close. I did pick them. I took Chargers. No, I wrote 6 here. That was my teaser. Give me the Chargers plus 2.5 there. Give me the Charge. Actually, it's plus 1.5 now. Yeah, I think the Chargers go into Dallas, pick up a win, eliminate Jerry and the boys, and Dallas goes yet another year without winning the Super Bowl. Kansas City at Tennessee. Let's talk about this Kansas City team here. Let me get a drink. We know Gardner Minshew's at the helm. But since a lot of this team, this is the first time they haven't made the playoffs, how does this team respond? Yes, Andy Reid's still there. Yes, Spagnuolo's there. But where does it draw motivation? And if you watched or heard the New Heights show, Travis kind of put it out there. But when they're playing this bad under Mahomes, where he was making up for a lot of the deficiencies in this Kansas City offense, do you think Gardner Minshew is going to even hold a candle to that? I don't. And for those of you that were posting on Twitter or on social media, period, saying that with this injury, the Chiefs' window is closed. I, for one, do not believe that for 1 second. I don't. I don't think this signals the end of the Andy Reid era in Kansas City. It might signal the end of Travis Kelce. It might. But what I think this opportunity, let's call it, instead of a tragedy, let's call it an opportunity. This gives the Kansas City Chiefs the most time they've ever had to evaluate, put a game plan moving forward, and completely revamp the whole offensive strategy, because the league is caught up with whatever Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes have been doing. And it's just now caught up with them. It only took the league, 10 years to kind of pick up on this? So it is what it is. It is what it is. And so as far as the window closing, no. I showed you the tweet about Brady tearing his ACL in his 9th year. We saw Brady go on to do great things after that. What's to say? Why are we so quick to say, oh, Mahomes is done? Mahomes, he's done. He's done. He's done. Stick a fork in him. This window's closed. Whatever descriptive thing you want to say here, because I'm not buying it. I am not buying it. When Mahomes comes back into the facility next season, I think you're going to see a lot of new faces. That I do believe. But this is one of those, they might come back stronger than what they were. And if that's the case, NFL better watch out. The NFL had better watch out. And it seems like every time I look at any Chiefs team under Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and say, okay, yeah, they're done. No. And if you think about it, when Mahomes comes back next year, he will be 31 years old. This isn't Aaron Rodgers tearing his Achilles, running out for the Jets. This is Patrick Mahomes in his early 30s. He's 30 right now. He turned 30 in September. So it's not like he's long in the tooth. It's not like he's an aging veteran. He is still playing at the top of his game and still will be for quite some time. So as much as everyone wants to pile on the Chiefs, all the Chiefs haters, I get it. I get it. I have Patrick Mahomes and Chiefs, fatigue syndrome often. But does that mean that they're completely dead? No. 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 And since I went down the Patrick Mahomes trail here, let's get back to that put a pin in it thing where we're talking about Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. The main obstruction into getting into the playoffs for Allen has been Mahomes, has been this Chiefs team. And if you look at this, the Chiefs are not going to be in the playoffs, period, iota whatsoever. Lamar, the season he's putting together is not looking good. This isn't Lamar MVP type situation. So you're looking at an AFC, and Joe Burrow's not there. Let's see. You've got Drake May, which you've beat. You have Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers. The Ravens with Lamar. Houston, maybe. Like I said, I don't trust Jacksonville. And Denver. And maybe the Chargers. So if you look at the competition that Josh Allen has had to face in the playoffs prior to this year, it was a much, much harder road. But we're also looking at a Buffalo Bills team that is probably the weakest Josh Allen has had as compared to the prior renditions of this Buffalo Bills team. So it kind of stinks if you're a Josh Allen or Bills fan. You're like, yep, Patrick Mahomes is done. Joe Burrow is done. Lamar is We've already beat Drake May. AFC Championship, here we come. But it's the weakest this team has been. But like I told you, when Josh Allen starts doing Josh Allen shit, that's when this team is scary. Scary. And they're a very potent second half team, and which was on full display last weekend. So I am a very big proponent in the Bills making it to the Super Bowl this year. The NFC is going to be kind of the wilder ride here because we have a lot of teams that, aside from this Rams team, it's very unproven in the playoffs. So it's going to be fun to watch. It's going to be fun to watch. But anyway, getting back to the Kansas City Titans game, Kansas City is favored by 3.5, and I think that just goes to show you how bad this Titans team is. But like I said, where's the motivation? If this, you might want to sprinkle some Tennessee love on this one, especially if you're getting 3 points. Might want to look into that. Bengals at Dolphins, don't care either way. Jets at Saints, don't care. Excuse me. Minnesota at Giants, don't care. Tampa at Carolina. We saw they're tied 7-7 right now. Tampa is a 3-point favorite. This Tampa team, I don't know if it's injuries. I don't know what's going on, but early in the season, we were Baker for MVP. Baker for MVP. This team is in shambles right now, and the only thing that they really have their hat, that they can hang their hat on, is the division's terrible. So as far as betting is concerned, I'm staying away from that one. Jags at Denver, that's going to be a good game. That's one of the 4:00 games. That's going to be a good game. They got Denver, a 3-point favorite, going into Mile High. We'll see how the Jags handle that. See how Trevor Lawrence does. The 3-point spread here. This is going to be a close game. And if Bo Nix comes out of this on top, they kind of have to go into the more heavier consideration of going in my top 5. Atlanta at Arizona, don't care. Pittsburgh at Detroit. Detroit's a 7-point favorite. Like I said, going through the standings, Detroit has to win out. This is a must win for Detroit. And Dan Campbell's record coming off a loss in the past couple seasons is very, very spotless. So I do expect Detroit to come out of that a winner. Vegas at Houston, don't care. Houston's a 14.5-point favorite. New England at Baltimore, we talked about. Have no idea why Baltimore's favored in this, because they're at home, maybe. I don't know. But you're talking about a very potent, very good New England team. Yes, they're going into Baltimore. But this Ravens team is, I don't know, just like they're a shell of themselves. And I've got zero confidence in the Ravens. And we hinted at it. San Francisco at Indianapolis. Brock Purdy versus Phillip Rivers. San Francisco is a 5.5-point favorite in this one. I think that's has a lot to do with how the Colts played last week against these Seahawks. And man, I do not see a world where San Francisco loses this game. You know, God forbid a bunch of injuries or something really, really weird happening. But yes, I would lay the 5.5 points and give me San Francisco. Give me San Francisco. Did I get to all of my stuff here? I did see one here that I did kind of glaze over. So let's bring the Michigan conversation back into play here. And yes, I completely understand Michigan fans. This is from an Ohio State person, Buckeye Nation. It says, interesting. Jim Harbaugh before and after Connor Stallions. Before 49-26, after 40-3. I mean, it's hard to argue that. Hard to argue that. I did that one. And this is from this was pretty much taken over by the article that we read, but Brett Galley, Michigan interim coach Biff Hoagie, spoke at the Citrus Bowl press conference. It's been a tumultuous time, he said. Disbelief, then anger, then really what we're in right now is the kids, quite frankly, feel very betrayed, and we're trying to work through that. And I think 2K Crew, I know it's not an answer that most Michigan fans are really going to like. But I think at this point, you just got to give Biff the reins for next year. You just got to give Biff the reins for next year and really thoroughly do some house cleaning and move on after next year. You'll have a whole new coaching, hiring, firing cycle, and you could get more of someone that is quote unquote your guy or a Michigan man. Because right now, if you're looking at, we talked about Jesse Minter last week. Do you think he's going to leave in the midst of a playoff hunt for the Chargers? No. Why would he? And if you're, like I said, if you're any kind of coach, I don't know. I wouldn't want to be. You could either think about it one or two ways. Either you're getting into an absolute cesspool of nastiness, or if you go in, turn that thing around, and you make it a winning program again, you will be heralded as a god on that campus. And there's going to be people that fall into both buckets here. And I'm just curious to see which coach steps up and is be like, you know what? I got this. I'm going to turn this around. This is what we're going to do. And then watch it unfold. And if it happens, great. Great. Because college football is better when Michigan is good. I'll say it again. As a Notre Dame fan, I admit this. College football is better when Michigan is good. And if, like I said, if you continue to if you extend Biff to next year, Are you punting on next year? Yeah. Yeah. But would you give up a year to do a better search, clean house, get some accountability in there, get some checks and balances, get all the nastiness, if you want to think about it that way, out, and provide a platform of stability for the next guy coming in? In my opinion, this is the bed that you made. So you have two decisions, either that or hire someone that is probably not qualified, and you set your program back even further. Those are just my two thoughts. I could be completely wrong. They could somehow get John Gruden out of retirement, like we talked about last week. Very close ties with Portnoy and Barstool. Hell, he works for him. So aside from that, that's in my eyes, those are the only two. That's the fork in the road. Either hire someone that is vastly underqualified, and that could honestly work out. Who knows? Or you keep Biff on, punt on a year, in hopes that you don't set your program back 5 or 6 years as compared to just one. And in the meantime, build that foundation, get the stability going that not only your program deserves, your university deserves, but your fans and the players of that team deserve. So with that thought, I'm going to leave you right there, 2K crew. And I'm going to get the heck out of here. Like I said, leading up to this, I'm going to try to get in and do a show on Friday. Like I said, it's Christmas. Again, for those of you that weren't with us in the first part, Christmas is not about what's under the tree. It's who's around the tree. Spend time with your loved ones. Have a fantastic meal. Make some memories. That's what it's about. Not how much money you spend or what's underneath the tree. So get in some good fam time. Don't talk about politics, if you really want to ruin the day. But get in, have some fun with your family. Everyone have a great Christmas. I will see you on Friday. And as always, Jim Rome, we're coming for you.